So at the time these events occurred at the Capitol building on the 6th of January, several things were happening at once. One of these things was pretty much a peaceful demonstration, and that's one thing. The second thing was an infiltration of that demonstration by a not so peaceful element. You could say a riotous element, or an element with another mission. And the third thing that was happening, and probably more importantly, was that there was actually a vote, a sitting of the Senate, of both sides of the House, as they say, were sitting to discuss whether they needed to proceed with examining the US election, and whether actually the votes were okay, whether the votes needed to be recounted, whether or not there was any fraud involved in the election. So this is an important thing that was going on. This was disrupted by the events of the day, with demonstrators coming into the Capitol building and a riotous element coming into the Capitol building. And we sent you a clip of one of the offices in the Capitol building. It wasn't Pelosi's office. It was one of the offices of the parliamentarians in the Capitol building, which was apparently ransacked. Now, specifically, the way I want to look at this today is from the perspective of China and the outcome of these events and how they might affect China and of course the wider world as well, because this has been quite an eventful few days. Lots of things have happened, and I particularly want to look at it from the perspective of China and what this means to China. One of the other facts of the situation is that Trump has been accused across the media in the West of inciting violence, inciting a coup against the American government, against the incoming administration, Biden, trying to take over the Capitol building. All these things, from what I've read and from what I understand, are actually untrue. Now, I'm not defending Trump. It's not my job to defend Trump or Biden, or I don't care, because as I've told you before, it matters not which one actually wins. They're pretty much both the same, because they're both owned by the money, by the corporations, by the MIC. Republicrats and Democrats, because they're pretty much the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin, two sides of the money, because the money owns all of it. So it matters not to me. I'm just trying to give you the facts of the situation and then give my perspective on what this might mean for China, the outcome of this situation. So Trump was accused of various things. From what I've read, most of these things are untruths. And then after this situation has died down and quietened down, Trump has been banned from social media, from Twitter and Facebook and whatever else they have in the West. Trump has been blocked and banned and disappeared from all these media outlets. This tells you something about this media, is that it's owned also, the same as the regular media, the newspapers and the TV. It's owned by the corporations. Just a handful of corporations own this. So it brings us to a very important point about the West and this notion of free speech. Is there actually free speech in the West? And I think you'll find that actually there isn't. All the speech is controlled and owned by somebody. So you are not free to say what you like. There is massive and heavy censorship, and it's very subtle, it's very devious, it's very covert. They can disappear. The guy who has just been president, he can be blocked from everything on the basis of some untruths that they're saying. And or his tweets, or his messages, or his opinions have disappeared. An aside to this, I've noticed Pompeo, the fat, bloated twerp, as I refer to him, has been noticeably silent on the demise of his president, the guy who actually gave him a good job. I've heard nothing from Pompeo, and if you ask me, Pompeo is more universally hated not just in China, I'm sure in China, but across the Western Hemisphere, Pompeo is despised. So you can take some heart from this, that most people in the West really genuinely despise Pompeo, and he has been very silent on the demise of his president. I guess he knew this was going to happen. Maybe he actually had a hand in this happening. It's quite likely. So there's a question of free speech, and is there actually free speech in the West? No, there is not. And I've said this before, and now we have the proof that the guy who was just president has now been disappeared. He doesn't exist as far as the Western world is concerned. How can this happen unless someone is controlling all of the speech in the West? There you go, that's a fact. Another big question we should ask about this is, if Trump was guilty of something, and again, I'm not defending Trump, I'm just trying to explain the facts as I see them. Who stood to benefit from this disruption in the Capitol building? Certainly not Trump. Trump didn't stand to gain anything from this happening, from these events. So you ask the question, who stood to benefit from these things happening? Not Trump. Most definitely, probably Biden, or the money behind Biden, the money that controls Biden. Biden is, remember, finger puppet, Biden, Trump, blah, blah, blah. Shall we kill them? Yeah, kill them all. They're just the same. So the money behind Biden stood to benefit from Trump being castigated and denigrated and pushed out of the Western media completely. Trump did not stand to benefit anything. Pompeo probably benefited, and the MIC benefited one way or the other. They always make money. So there's some facts. So we have to look forward to what was behind all this theatrics, this smoke and mirrors. This Trump did this, but actually it wasn't Trump. It was Biden's team, the MIC, the money, the corporations made something happen and made it look as if something else had happened. Now, one of the outcomes of this will be, I'm sure, there will be some legislation, some laws passed that will erode further the freedoms, so-called freedoms that exist in the West. There will be a clampdown on what you can say, where you can be, and who you can be with. I can guarantee this will happen. So there will be a further erosion of whatever freedoms there are that are left in the West. This will happen. What does this mean for China? What it means is that I think if we look at just how devious Biden's too old to be devious. Let's be honest. The man is a walking shell. He's 80 years old, is he? But the deviousness, let us not underestimate the deviousness and the untrustworthy nature of the people and the money behind Biden and Trump. And Pompeo is probably in both camps. Let's be honest about this. Pompeo he's an MIC, he's CIA, he's military industrial complex. End of. They're all in the same gang. The truth of the matter is, as I see it, the outcome for China is, do not trust these. That's what I see. And you can bleep this. Don't trust them. You could not and cannot and must not trust these people. And again, I use the term loosely, because the way Trump has been assassinated, okay, I'm not standing up for Trump, but look at this as an honorable matter. This is a president and an incoming president, and how they are fighting and stabbing each other in the back. Stabbing each other in the back. Here's the key phrase. Trump has been stabbed in the back and disappeared. He's in a bag floating down the river, or he's got bricks tied to him. He's sinking. He's food for the fish. Trump is feeding the fish, for all we know right now. He's at the bottom of the river. Don't trust these people. You cannot trust them. Look at how they have behaved, and look at this theater, this smokescreen, this smoke and mirrors that has been created. It's not to be trusted. And if I were going to give any advice to China as a nation, it is this. With those kind of people in control of American foreign policy, don't give them an inch. Do not trust them. Do not trust them any further than you could kick them. That's not very far, okay? Something came back to my mind from a previous video I've done about the stark difference between the Western way of looking at and doing things, and the Chinese way of looking at and doing things. And I've told you, China is the beehive, you know, every bee knows its place, it knows what it's doing, it works for the common good. And in the West, you have this disparate, disassociated, everybody's arguing and bickering and it never comes together. And if you think about this, even the process by which they choose their so-called leaders, the people who are supposed to be the top of the tree, the people who they look up to for guidance and leadership and to look after the country, they are chosen by a process of divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. It's either us and them, or it's him and me. It's them and us. You know, there's this thing. It's always two things fighting against each other. It's not done with the principle of togetherness, of unity. And there you have the stark difference between the West and the East, between the US and the UK and China. China is the beehive, it's together, and it's together right from the beginning. And the West isn't. It's us and them, him and me. You die or I die. Divide and conquer. So maybe there are many people in China who are saying, well, what can we do about America? And I have some comforting words for you from an American president of a bygone age. I think it was Abraham Lincoln, who said, America will never be defeated from the outside. America will defeat itself from the inside. And I've been saying lately, because I can see it happening, China doesn't need to worry about America because America will eat itself. Okay, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Thanks for listening.